Hey, welcome back to live coverage of the Old Cranky Man Team
We back
Trios. Back.
again.
Guess who's back?
Back again.
Back
It's
again.
us. It's
It's
just
us.
us.
It's us. We're here. This round, we're watching Jake, who's playing Affinity at the top of your screen, against Brian playing Jun Saga at the bottom. Finally got a Ragavan in the feature match
Oh,
area.
well,
Not that round two is super duper late into the tournament, but
yeah. So we had Ragavans in the scam deck, but we just never saw the appearance, right?
sure, if he does not appear on camera, he has not entered the feature match
The,
area.
the monkey is ready to come out. We must see monkey one time today, right?
At least once, if not many, many more
Return
times.
to monkey. I do like that we're seeing reprints of him already, right? Like
Sure.
we're getting those specialty printings that are just kind of reducing the overall difficulty of entering.
So, what are we looking at in this matchup? What do we think?
So we're probably going to see a lot of 0 and 1 mana artifact and artifact creatures coming from the affinity side. Memnite, Ornithopter, Welding Jar, just a lot of very cheap, very efficient creatures, as well as interaction stapled to artifacts in Spell Bombs, in Pithing Needle, in Relic, and then of course Shadow Spear. There is no doubt in my mind that both of these decks are running Urza Saga to great effect. In fact, the only like colored spells are probably going to be things like Thought Cast and Thought Monitor that are just going to draw Affinity a ton more efficient and efficiently costed and hard to deal with threats because of things like Welding Jar.
Yep, absolutely.
Haywire Might, sort of a big pickup for this deck, right?
Yes, absolutely.
And then, of course, Urza Saga just going to, as a difficult to interact with. Oh, we got an IOK coming down.
It is very much like it gives this toolbox element to the Jund Saga deck that Jund has never really had access to before.
Right.
Typically Jund is just this mid-rangey value deck. They have threats, they have answers, they play a game of Magic.
Mm-hmm.
It's all very fair.
Yes.
And Urza Saga doing a very fair thing in here, but again, giving Jund sort of this toolbox edge that it's never had before.
And we get to see bigger threats come out of Jund too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? That's what I love about this, because we're going to see like potentially the new Glissa Sunslayer, Grist the Hunger Tide, 3 and 4 mana. I've seen some lists run Soul of Windgrace.
Oh wow,
which is super rad. And then Ragavan, obviously the sort of all-star. And then I don't put it past the Jund player. I think did we see a Gigantha in the
he does not have
no
Gigantha companion.
So totally reasonable. Probably running a double pitch spell here or there. But just a lot of like cheap and efficient spells from both sides.
Yep.
Once Jake starts landing welding jars, it's going to be very hard for Brian to deal with it.
Sure.
Because those welding jars are just so good at regenerating the threats that are, especially the ones generated from Urza Saga.
Yep.
If Jake ever starts making those Urza
the Karn structs.
Yeah. He just goes off, right? Those Karn structs become 4/4s and 5/5.
Yeah, they get very big, very fast.
Yeah, and we do have a Thought Monitor and a Thought Cast both in hand. And so, yeah, okay, he's going to take I believe that's a welding jar that he took out of his hand. IOK.
Look, typical. That's not actually a welding jar.
Oh, what is it?
It is a signet of some sort.
It's one of the signets. It's a blue-white signet.
Sure. Yeah. So in typical Jund fashion, you take the card out of their hand and they immediately draw it again.
I believe we call this the Mitgo bug.
The Thoughtseize bug.
Yeah. IOK comes, takes the card, immediately takes card. And we got a Esper Sentinel coming in too. What's the card that he has in play there? Jund.
That I am not entirely sure.
It looks like a full art card. Maybe a Haywire Might. It might be a Goyf, or I think it's a 2-mana threat.
It's an extended arc Tarmogoyf.
Oh, it's a Goyf. Okay. So yeah, it's. I was like, he paid 2 mana for it. It's a Goyf. Then we got a Thought Cast, immediately filling Jake up, right? The ability for the deck to have 8 Thoughtcasts now in the form of Thoughtcast
And Thought Monitor.
and Thought Monitor.
Yeah.
Holy cow!
And it gets out of control very, very quickly, and it makes it really hard for the Jund deck to sort of keep parity,
Yep.
as it were.
And then all we're doing is we're waiting to build up this
So
critical mass.
is Urza Saga legendary?
No, it is not.
It is not legendary.
You can play a whole bunch of them all at once.
Wow.
Yeah, they sort of didn't think that one through. Treasure Vault, also not legendary. We might see that. And then we have, in terms of the actual mana, the mana base, we see a lot of different colors coming into Affinity. Like, blue is sort of the base color, but this one's a blue-white deck.
Yep.
So that he has access to Esper Sentinel, which is just going to tax everything that Brian wants to do in regards to non-creature spells.
Yep. There are a bunch of other colors you can play in there too, right? Like you need, if you want to play Cranial Plating, you need black, which I'm sure he's playing 4 copies of Cranial Plating, because why wouldn't you?
Right.
And then Galvanic Blast in red.
Yeah. Oh, dude, that card is absurd. So those card constructs, how big are they right now? Probably 6/6s?
So we've got the bridge, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There are 7 sevens.
7 sevens.
Yep, very, very difficult for the
2
Jund deck
lands
to keep
in
up
play.
with this at all. So I believe the Tarmogoyf is a 3/4 icy land instant. No,
Sorcery.
no. It is, it is just a 3/4.
Thoughtcast is a sorcery, right?
There's land, sorcery, artifact, enchantment. So it's a 4/5.
Oh, wow. That got
Urza Saga is an enchantment.
Yeah, it's an enchantment land. Yeah, I think Jay still just hammers in here, right? We're just going to...
Yep. So after he resolved his Saga trigger, he did cast a Thought Monitor, so that is now an 8/8.
Wow. So he has 16 power just in those 2 bodies.
Yep.
And then he has the Thought Monitor that's a 2/2 flyer. He's got the Venser. That's a Venser's Sojourner's Companion. I say Venser, but it is Venser the Sojourner. That's a Sojourner's Companion on the far right of his board.
That's a Memnite.
Is it a Memnite?
Yeah, that's a full art Memnite.
Listen, if I could keep up with the full art versions of cards.
Yeah, that's definitely a full art Memnite.
Which is fine. It's a 0 mana 1/1 that increases the number of artifacts.
Yep.
So this deck still an absolute terror, even without the Mox Opal.
Yeah, I do love an affinity deck. So Brian's Saga is going to find him a Shadow Spear. He's got a Mountain.
So that Goyf being able to equip the spear and start gaining him life, hopefully.
Yeah, I don't
know.
He does not have enough resources. The affinity deck got out of control very, very quickly. He doesn't have enough mana to equip and to also kill something, and it's going to be really, really hard for the Jund deck to...
It's rough going 1-for-1 with tokens, too, right? Like, you don't want to spend a Fatal Push on a gigantic construct, but got a Nile Spellbomb.
Yep.
But it's almost required at this board state. Like, dealing with these threats that have been generated by a land, it's... Oh, we got a monkey. He showed a Ragavan,
but just decided to equip the Shadow Spear onto the Tarmogoyf here.
I think that's correct.
And he's just going to pass back. So I believe this Tarmogoyf is still a 4/5, so the Shadow Spear will make it into 5/6.
Yeah. For some reason, I thought it was a Skull Clamp.
It will not be able to profitably block a construct in this situation. My question is, does this Jund Saga deck have Force of Vigor in its sideboard?
We got a Teferi.
Teferi's going to hit the board. Yeah. He's going to bounce the Tarmogoyf, and that is going to be it for game 1.
Yeah.
So
Teferi, another reason to be in white. Right?
I'm very curious if we have Force of Vigor in the sideboard of this Saga deck.
Almost assuredly. Force of Vigor. Let's see here. I think it's sort of a meta call, I think. We see a lot of variety in the amount of in the sideboard selections for Jund Saga. I think that we can absolutely go up like Moon Effects, or they probably run some amount of Graveyard Hate in the form of Unlicensed Hearse, or we saw the main board Nile Spellbomb there, and that sort of allows the Urza Saga to function as an answer package And so a lot of these answers that we consider traditionally sideboard cards or sideboard selection, Jun Saga sort of gets to main board, right? They get to have them in the main deck. They get to bring them in with Urza's Saga, or in the form of like Soul of Windgrace. Even like you get to get back your Urza's Saga to then be able to reutilize the Saga portion of it. I again, we didn't see the Gigantha in the sideboard, so it's sort of hard for me to say exactly what double pipped card is represented there. Yeah, I think traditionally a lot of these Jun Saga decks run a variety of cards in the sideboard. Ancient Grudge would be a really good one, right? Haywire Might, very good.
So he is bringing in, Jun Saga is bringing in Beseiju and Engineered Explosives.
Very good.
And Beseiju as a way, to destroy artifacts that the opponent can't do anything about.
It's shocking to me he's not main board.
The Affinity deck is bringing in Spell Pierce, Relic of Progenitus, Teferi Time Raveler, and an additional copy of Expedition Map.
Oh.
The Expedition Map, just a way to find Urza's Saga.
Right.
Because cranking out Karnstruct tokens is
winning strategy.
Is a winning strategy against this Jun deck that's really just looking to trade one for one.
Very much.
You turn your land into 3 different permanents. It makes it very, very difficult for them to do anything about it.
3 different permanents that all synergize together, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because you end with the getting of the third of another artifact. So no matter what, if you have the resources to put into the Urza Saga, you end up with 3 artifacts in play and 6 power and toughness on 2 bodies.
Yep.
With any amount of artifacts, like you could get something to protect them in the form of Welding Jar, or you could get you could get a Shadow Spear if you wanted to start going over the top. And all it requires of you is playing all land.
Yeah, I do like bringing in the additional copy of Expedition Map here.
Yeah.
Spell Pierce. Gonna counter any sort of interaction that he brings in. I believe the double pipped spell is Liliana of the Veil.
Interesting. I think I haven't seen that card come in a lot right now, but it's definitely a powerful spell.
Yeah, I don't think Liliana of the Veil particularly well positioned right here. Kind of just a relic of the past, as it were.
Sort of an interesting choice.
She's fallen off of favor. The once extremely powerful magic card that was sort of the menace or the elephant in the room has really sort of fallen out of favor.
Unfortunate, but it's also just the power level, right? It's more of a Pioneer card now.
Sure.
Having been printed into Standard and then into Pioneer, we see it played a lot in that format.
Yeah.
Whereas in Modern, it's sort of been outclassed in both speed and effectiveness in what it's trying to do.
Yeah, it's just very, very inefficient to spend 3 mana in your whole turn to play a card that lets your opponent decide what they're going to get rid of.
Yeah, in terms of both hand or board. Generally, Liliana is never ultimating, right?
I don't know. I've ultimated Liliana a few times.
Yeah, depending upon the game state, but Affinity's sort of a powerhouse in terms of speed and in terms of interaction against this Jun deck.
Sure. Having
Teferi Time Raveler to bounce spells and just go up cards.
Yep. He did bring an additional copy of Teferi as well.
I think that's totally correct.
Yep.
Because he gets to basically create this wall of threats or of bodies that could just
I believe he sideboarded out the Liliana, so he does have Gigantha as a companion now.
That to me,
that's interesting.
That feels like
you can just sideboard out Liliana, and now you have Gigantha.
That is such a good call. I think you should just do that all the time forever. There's nothing in my heart that says to not have a companion if at all possible. Right?
Oh, that's really funny.
Okay, we're shuffling up now, going into game 2. We have Gigantha showing there. At the worst case scenario, he just gets to pay 3 mana, put this thing in his hand, and have a 5 mana. What is it? A 5/5?
It's a 5 mana 5/5 that taps for Wooburg. Yep.
Insane. That is easy to cast.
Yeah, probably not going to do much against this Affinity deck. Turn 1, we have a Seachrome Coast, which casts a Relic of Progenitus, exiling the land card from his graveyard.
That's that relic represents a lot of counterplay, especially for the main threats of this deck, which is Tarmogoyf.
Yep.
Ragavan less hit, but Goyf, we saw it in the last game. It got relatively large, right? It was a 4/5.
Yep.
With very little effort.
Yep.
But Jake now being able to constantly, especially turn 1, being able to just relic down graveyards, relic down the graveyard, and then eventually, if he needs to pop it, he can pop it, and it replaces itself in hand.
Yep, it does.
And such a great turn 1 play. I'm never mad to see a turn 1 relic.
Yep, really good counterplay to this Shun deck. Interested to see where this game goes from here. As, Affinity can have these explosive turn 1s where they just kind of lay their entire hand on the table and then see what you have to do about it.
Yeah.
And, none of that here. Of course, there's a lot less of that now since Mox Opal has been banned for several years at this point.
Probably for the best.
Still Affinity definitely has the ability to play a whole bunch of cards on turn 1.
Yeah.
So, Jund now going to play an Urza's Saga, passing back to Affinity, who shocks in a Hallowed Fountain and then casts the what is that card called? Ingenious.
Iconic?
No, it's
Gearsmith?
It's ingenious something.
It's a Kaladesh card, yes. No. Ingenious Smith? It's Ingenious Smith from Forgotten Realms.
Okay.
It
looks like a lightning bolt is going to take out the Ingenious Smith, and passing back to Brian here, he's going to add a Renin 6 to the board. Just going to tick it
up for nothing.
Yep, just going to tick it up. He did put a land back into his hand there, I think.
Well, he has the relic in play. I didn't know if he was going to, activate in response or pop it in response. He was tapped out, wasn't he?
Yeah.
I think Jund definitely had own second relic. Little rough.
Yeah, and this is kind of what I was saying is, if Affinity has one of these kind of like slow draws where, they just have, they drew the wrong part of their deck or whatever, and they're not able to add a whole bunch of stuff to the board or get really far ahead on card advantage really quickly. The Jund deck is probably more favored the longer this game goes.
Oh, agreed. Yeah, it just gets to the speed with which Affinity can operate is sort of counterplayed by sometimes you just draw the wrong half of your deck, right? Like you said, unloading your hand to turn 1 is great, but it does require that sort of almost oppressive opening hand. Whereas Jund's draws are just so even and so good across the board that.
Yep, they basically always plan.
Always have it.
They always plan to just do the fair thing, right?
Yeah. So agree. Yeah, and so.
What they give up in terms of explosiveness, they gain in consistency.
Yeah.
A Haywire Might going to hit the board from that Urza's Saga. He's going to add another Urza's Saga to the battlefield.
Woof. So I'm interested there. Why did Jake exile his own graveyard with that Relic of Progenitus? So Jake activated Relic and exiled his own Ingenious Gearsmith there. Or Ingenious Smith. So we got a Thought Cast coming down. Just going to try to refill here. He has enough artifacts to do it. He's not out of the game. To be clear,
no, absolutely not.
Life total's still high. Brian has an excellent board right now. He has a 2/2 construct in the form because it has a Haywire Might backing it up. It's probably going to jump up to a 4/4 if Brian makes another Saga here, and then when he eventually ultimates it. I say ultimate when the Saga finally pops at the end.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to have the opportunity to make at least two more constructs and get another artifact. In this situation, I think I would actually get the Haywire Mites. The fact that that he has one in play already. It's, from here, sort of world's your onion, right? Like, you get to do whatever you want.
He got the Haywire Might off of the first turns of Saga. Yeah. And Jake's just going to pass back here. He has yet to play an actual threat.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. He played a Shadow Sphere with nothing to do.
Looks like the Construct is going to come across for 2 damage here, and we will see what main phase 2 brings for Jund Saga.
Is Brian's whole graveyard exiled right now? Like,
I don't think there's anything in there, because otherwise he'd be getting that Saga back with Renin 6.
Yeah, I am not sure. I haven't seen those relics do much. Tarmogoyf going to hit the bin now.
He exiled his own yards proactively for the Tarmogoyf.
That makes sense.
Oh, that's actually a super heads-up play from Jake. I didn't even consider that.
Renin 6 going to tick up here, and Jake is going to activate the relic to exile all graveyards.
And draw a card.
And now we will pass back to Jake. Let's see if he can find something to add to the board here. Now would be a good time to start turning the corner on this. Otherwise, it might get out of control faster than he can keep up with. 4 mana coming here. There's an Urza.
If we're talking about good cards to play, an Urza Lord High Artificer, sort of the top tier, right?
You know me, I love me an Urza.
Turning all
4 mana, 1/4 that brings a Construct with it, turns all of his non-creature artifacts into a Mox Sapphire. It's not just non-creature. Turns all of his artifacts into a Mox Sapphire.
Yeah, so that Shadow Sphere can tap for mana to equip itself.
And then it has nice.
Yeah,
and then it has the built-in Mind's Desire.
There we got the Esper Sentinel. That Thoughtcast, I think, did some real work for Jake. He does, any X1s sort of can get tagged down by that Renin 6. I don't think Jake's super concerned about that, right?
Yep.
He wants to eventually draw into cards that will draw him into cards. Sort of turn into a slugfest here.
Yeah, like I said, this was the turn for Jake to start pivoting.
Yes.
He was able to present 2 decent threats onto the board. That Construct is now a 4/4, outclassing both of Brian's creatures.
Yeah, the 0/1 Tarmogoyf not doing a whole lot, huh?
So let's see. We'll put this Urza Saga
back,
trigger on the stack.
We are
Brian's
here
turn
live
and see
with
what he
round
decides
1
to do.
of the OCM team
question
trios.
is, does
You see
he
on your
float
screen.
mana, or does he make the card
Dan's
construct?
building up.
Like, that's always
Life
isn't really that low. Float mana, he's at make the card construct.
He has missed several land drops, if you see there. He's not been able to really do anything with the Saga for the last couple of turns because he's been having to tap it to add to the side of the board. It looks like he's just going to float the mana.
Creatures,
Not surprising, given, again, that
tempo
he's-
him out. Like the Merfolk
and he's
Chase, you see there
exiling.
tapping the
Jake
thing down so it couldn't
exiling,
get in. Exiling it immediately with
really
the
giving
relic.
him the ability to kind of
He
race.
does pick up a copy of Shadow Spear. That'll come into play.
making his
back.
card construct.
Both players have taken a mulligan.
He's going to be able to equip it with the mana he has. And he can ping down that Esper Sentinel with his Renin 6. I don't know what royalty exactly.
I think it is a single-digit number. I can't tell.
Okay. But it doesn't really matter.
Hang on just a second. Let me pop out
I
there.
would definitely spend
much
it
as we
on
try to
that because
mitigate
it's going to
these kind of
remove
issues,
it's going to remove an artifact from the board and power down that construct. So you sort
especially when we're running a team trio.
you pay for that, and then you remove any of the taxation effects. Because, like we said, he did miss a couple of drops. We are seeing a Besage here.
Pay 4 mana
and then a Maelstrom
or any deck
down
really
and
like
taking care of
4 mana
the
is such like generally what we see is a 0 or 1.
Yep.
Like
I wonder if he paid for the
The Eldrazi Tron decks have the ability to
what
make
is
very
that card
large
that's being
chances.
played there.
right, that's sort of a Tron deck, sort of the outlier.
Looks like
in
it's
what they
a
can produce in terms of
Yeah.
in terms of mana.
Your typical, like Merfolk deck that has challenge.
And Merfolk is just
A metallic
naturally
rebuke.
immune to a
That's a
lot of
metallic
that. It's naturally
rebuke.
immune to a lot
He
of
countered
removal.
He countered
spells
the
uncounterable.
Maelstrom Pulse with a metallic rebuke.
So, but Modern
and
doesn't
gets
exactly
to keep the
have
Urza
a
Saga.
tempo
That's
deck
sort of
in the
rough.
sense that, in the sense that
I don't know if he paid the
you know,
tax
think about
for
it,
the
see if
Esper Sentinel.
Scam has an answer.
He
We
might have
are
missed
we are
that.
going back to Dan's
But
turn.
it's paper. You gotta
got
remember
the-
your triggers. Yeah.
See,
Yeah,
he's got-
absolutely.
he's got a
So
he does have
if It's up to
lands
Jake
untapped.
to remember the trigger.
So the
for
question
Esper
is,
Sentinel.
does
Yep.
Dan go for it? He's got lethal.
The Ridden 6 is on one loyalty.
It's on
he's
one.
just considering
Okay,
his
so it'd have
options
to-
right now, right?
So yeah, it's
Well, the beauty about
sort of
this
hard
is
to
that
let
he
that
does
go,
not
and
die
not
on
getting
the
a lot of
crackback.
value
right. Even if he
in terms of
even if
like
he goes all in,
getting anything back with it.
Let's see.
Yep,
I
and so
might
he,
also-
with everybody
he did
there's
tick the Ridden
handshake.
6 up there to
Murpho,
ping the
what a match.
Urza and then
Murpho gonna
finish it
take
off
it
with a lightning
down.
bolt.
Oh, he bolted it. Okay.
Yep.
Because he tried to Maelstrom Pulse it, got countered with a Medallion
Yep.
Rebuke, and then he bolted it. Okay.
Looks like Teferi Time Raveler going to come down here. So this is a portable hole. Looks like it's going to take out this Haywire Mite. That is unfortunate. That Haywire Mite could have done a little bit of work here to take out either the Shadow Spear or the Relic of Progenitus. The Karnstruct is going to get equipped with the Shadow Spear. And then we're going to chrome across into the red zone with both the Esper Sentinel and the Karnstruct. It looks like the Karnstruct is a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So that'll be a 9 power Karnstruct. And the door is quickly closing for Brian. Let's see here if he can do anything to turn around game 2 here and force a game 3, or if we are going to be moving along. Again, this Jund deck just having a really hard time keeping up with all of the value that they can get out of these cards that gain card advantage or replace themselves. No. I'll move it when we're done. Tarmogoyf going to come into the red here and gain a little bit of life.
Oofa doofa. This is a
Teferi Time Raveler going to hit the bin here.
definitely a slower start on the side of Affinity, but like
Looks like Pithing Needle is going to hit the field, and I believe he named Relic of Progenitus.
that's smart. Yeah, it doesn't let you pop it. I wonder if he could have popped it in response, but yeah, no, it's
No, he was tapped out.
oh, that's right, because he names it after it comes into play. There's no way for him to respond with naming it, right?
He was tapped out.
Oh, that too.
Oh man, that's such a heads up play.
Yeah, this Karnstruct is a 10/10 and has a trample
Woof.
and lifelink. So
Oh, those because the Darksteel Citadels. Yeah.
I do believe this is just lights out here from Jund, unless he has
Oh, he's
a Force of Vigor.
drawing cards now. He played a Thoughtcast. Drew 2 more.
A portable hole is going to come down,
It's going to take care of that Pithing Needle.
and I
that's good.
think this one is in the books.
All right, folks.
2-0 for Affinity there.